from the chat room. And J-Mac, this is your question. This is to Tony. Do you think that we'll see any physical differences out there when they use lead at CERN? Will there be a physical change? Will there be any manifestations based on your research?
Yes, we have seen with protons, earthquakes and volcanic activity increasing. We've seen more effects in the aurora borealis moving further south and the changing of colors from green to red. As the power increases from the 20th of this month to the 13th of December, as it ramps up, we will see more and more earthquakes and volcanic activity, changes to the magnetosphere, changes to the aurora borealis that's visible to us, and marked changes in the weather, because the weather is partly a function of what happens with the magnetosphere, the shields around the planet. So I would think that by the first part of December, when we get up near the peak power, we are going to see some definite earth changes take place. I hope not. I hope that something goes, the finger of God reaches down and shuts this machine off. But if we are to look at the already experienced increases in the weather changes and the tectonic plate activities, then we can extrapolate that forward, because we're going from tera electron volts to peta electron volts, and we're, by their own admission, moving into an entirely new field of physics. They describe this as a new field of physics that they really do not know what is going to happen when they collide at those power levels, ions of lead.
And Tony, I was just thinking there before we covered the fact, that amazing phenomena, and I know there was a lot of fake out there, but the trumpet noises in the sky, now you brought forth the information to us that these were generated by telluric currents. Now I suspect, and I'll have to get your take on this, but with the bigger head-on collisions of lead on lead, can we expect to see, hear more of the trumpets in the sky?
I believe so, and I think that is, pardon the pun, but it's echoed in the book of Revelation. So yes, I do think that we will hear the sounds, and they'll be vastly different than what we've heard around the planet so far.
And Joe, We've seen the earthquakes. We had the Nepal. We, of course, had the plane going down into the Alps, Chile as well. It makes you wonder, these mountainous kind of areas. It was Clyde Lewis and Tony who first brought this to my attention in the gravimetric wave theory. We should maybe keep an eye on an uptick in the earthquakes in those kind of regions come the 20th of November when this all kicks off.
So here's some of the pushback from science. And I want to throw this to you, Tony, because I think you could give a better answer. Okay, so these collisions, they say, happen all the time in our atmosphere. We get particles that are colliding with our atmospheric particles that are going much faster and happening all the time around our planet. So what's the big deal if we're just generating, these little bitty collisions in this little bitty collider, in the grand scheme of things?
Yes. It comes down to, in their words, luminosity. It is the concentration of the billions of ions that they are accelerating. When we talk about the energies coming from the cosmos, we talk about X-rays, gamma rays, protons, neutrinos that interact with the air molecules in our atmosphere. And when you have collisions with air molecules taking place, you are exactly replicating what is happening within the Large Hadron Collider. But the difference is very small numbers of protons that are colliding with small numbers of oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen in the atmosphere. So you have very infrequent collisions taking place. Yes, you do have 1.15 peta electron volt collisions taking place all the time in our atmosphere.
Yeah.
but it's the numbers, it's the concentration, it's the power that's generated in a small space, generating huge temperatures. This is what we haven't even talked about, and we'll do it on another show. But the temperatures are critical to what they're doing because it falls into the discussion of symmetry and asymmetry, neutrinos, neutrons, protons, quarks in particular, when we talk about high temperatures. The high temperatures are for a picosecond or nanosecond are being generated in our atmosphere, but because of the short duration and the low concentrations of these collisions taking place, we don't even notice it taking place. We will notice it with this machine because of the billions of ions that are being accelerated and then billions that are being collided. Go ahead and jump in, but I've got one more note on that.
Yeah, I was just going to, for the listeners out there, I mean, so far, it's been kind of crazy enough when we think of the smaller mass protons and the fact that they haven't been colliding head on. It's been glancing blows, if you want to think about it that way. And now, because you've got all these bunches of lead that are going to be actually packed together and they're going to be traveling around there at close to the speed of light, as Tony said before, it basically forms a solid stream of lead. It's two streams of metal on metal at the speed of light, crashing into each other continuously, billions and billions and billions of these explosions all at once. Joe.
Yeah, and when we go ahead.
No, I mean, this is fascinating. That's a perfect answer because what it does is it's basically they give you the politically correct answer or the one that where they spin enough truth in there to make it believable. Yeah, there are these collisions that take place up in the atmosphere. And yeah, they do happen all the time. But what they fail to tell you is, yeah, they happen all the time, but not in a concentration enough to really affect anything. But oh, by the way, if you're doing billions of these in the same spot at the same time, yeah, you might be able to, rip interdimensional gateways and black holes and strangelets. Oh my.
And
yes, indeed.
You know, the fact that they even accept that it happens in space all the time and around our atmosphere, Tony, it kind of suggests that they're even giving a glimpse into the fact that it is an electric universe, because earlier we were talking about how these particles accelerate in the plasma, and that's exactly what we see from particles leaving the sun coming towards Earth. They're accelerated because space is no vacuum. It's a plasma.
And it's not dark matter, it's not dark energy, it's all electric plasma, and the AWAKE project at CERN is replicating the plasma in the universe and the acceleration that naturally occurs in the universe due to the movement of particles through magnetic fields that accelerate these particles through the plasma. Let me give you, we talked about energy levels. We talked about tera electron volts, and now we're talking peta electron volts, which again, I want to emphasize to the audience, you will not see CERN talking about the power levels being at peta electron volts. So let me give you an example very quickly. If we're talking 1.15 peta electron volts is what this machine is truly designed to handle. By design, 1.15 peta electron volts. If you take just a billion particles, and I'm glad you brought up that question, Joe, about what's entering the atmosphere naturally. Mm-hmm. If we take only a billion and we take that and equate that to TNT, to kilograms of TNT, 1.15 peta electron volts colliding a billion particles equals 0.044 kilograms of TNT, a very small number. But sure. Now you need to do the multiplication times the billions. You end up with, and I'm not going to cloud everybody with numbers here. The short story is if you have a billion particles colliding and generating 1.15 peta electron volts, that equates to 50.6 kilotons of TNT. That's kilotons, not kilograms.
So you're basically talking about like Fat Man.
Yes.
You're detonating that inside in a little space.
You know, Joe, I was looking into the public face of CERN on this very topic because it was Popeye the other night. He asked us, well, what does like this peta electron volts, what's that actually mean, Kev? And I felt quite embarrassed at the time because I wasn't able to give him an answer. And I went to CERN and I had a look at what they said. And they were talking about how 1 tera electron volt was basically the equivalent of the energy that you found inside a mosquito. But they weren't telling you that there was billions of mosquitoes piled up on top of each other,
Exactly.
flying into one another at the same time.
Exactly. They talk about the movement of mosquito wings equating to tera electron volts. Pure nonsense. You have to go to the billions, to the trillions. Now we have to go to the quadrillions. So if you take a quadrillion of ions of lead and start colliding a smaller grouping of that quadrillion of ions down to just billions and then multiply it, we're looking at tons, kilotons of TNT exploding at the same time.
See it now, Joe? They just give you the one. They don't give it that full picture. They just give you the little snapshot.
Exactly. That's what gets me, because you hear what they're saying, and it makes perfect sense. Oh yeah, these collisions, they do happen all the time.
Yeah, mosquitoes not scary. How can that be harmful? Let's look away.
Exactly. But yeah, a billion of them, that would suck.
Literally. Upon billion, upon billion, upon billion, all the time, constantly, at the speed of light.
At the speed of light, too. Yeah.
And this is what everyone is missing. You guys have just brought out what every other commentator about CERN, I don't care who they are, no one has gone and said what we've said tonight.
Wow. Very interesting indeed. This is great. And Kev, with all these fissures that are opening up and things around the planet, how do we know that we're not having an effect?
And this is what I'm talking about. Because of the metallic nature of some rock, if these gravimetric waves are propagating around the planet from CERN, then obviously we're going to see symptoms in that kind of location. We are.
Absolutely. Yep. So we got about a minute. We got about a minute and 30 left, and I know, Kev, you got to shoot.
No, it's okay. I'll stay.
Oh, number 3.
If you went to CERN, you would have me.
Yes, I twist your arm. That's right. That's awesome, dude. So
but I think that's really important for everyone to think about and explain it to everyone that way, because when you look into it, it does not look at all scary. And for one moment, I actually questioned whether we were right to be even putting this out, and then it hit me 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times, all of them packed together. It's not just one at a time, folks. And when Tony talks more luminosity, they're talking about more of these things colliding all at once. 10 times, we told you. Crazy.
Wow. Kind of makes you wonder why this doesn't have more of front page exposure.
That's why it doesn't.
Yeah, but this is crazy. I mean, this really has some detrimental consequences if, in fact, think about that. If it doesn't contain itself, or what are we doing?
Then we can extrapolate that forward, because we're going from tera electron volts to peta electron volts, and we're, by their own admission, moving into an entirely new field of physics. They describe this as a new field of physics that they really do not know what is going to happen when they collide at those power levels. Ion volcanic activity increasing. We've seen more effects in the aurora borealis moving further south, and the changing of colors from green to red. As the power increases from the 20th of this month to the 13th of December, as it ramps up, we will see more and more earthquakes and volcanic activity, changes to the magnetosphere, changes to the aurora borealis that's visible to us, and marked changes in the weather, because the weather is partly a function of what happens with the magnetosphere, the shields around the planet. So I would think that by the first part of December, when we get up near the peak power, we are going to see some definite earth changes take place. I hope not. I hope that something goes, the finger of God reaches down and shuts this machine off. But if we are to look at the already experienced increases in the weather changes and the tectonic plate activities.
From the chat room. And
Yeah.
J-Mac, this is your question. This is to Tony. Do you think that we'll see any physical differences out there when they use lead at CERN? Will there be a physical change? Will there be any manifestations based on your research?
Yes, we have seen with protons, earthquakes and